Welcome to Teaching Artistry with Courtney J. Body. That's me. This is a podcast that celebrates artists and advocates for community engagement. And like you, I'm home and trying to connect as best we can with as many people as we can. And so we decided to launch this video series called hashtag Keep Making Art, where we are talking with different creatives who are creating art, sharing art, or guiding others to make and share art. And so I want to get right to our guest, Adam Guan. Hi, Adam.
Hey, Courtney. Thanks for having me.
I am so happy to have you. I'm just going to show everybody the pineapple.
Oh, I love the pineapple.
All right. The pineapple is what's getting me through today.
It's your quarantine tip of the day. Have a pineapple full of a delicious beverage.
Some sort of beverage, the beverage of your choice. So how are you dealing with this crisis, this COVID-19 crisis?
Dealing, I one day at a time, I think. It's one of those situations where I wake up feeling different every single morning. Some mornings I'm like super motivated to get to work and I feel inspired. Others I do not, and I stay in bed for a really long time. But I'm trying to be gentle with myself and let myself actually be in the moment in that way, since it's it feels like an honest thing to do.
I'm with that. So everybody's safe.
Everybody
Healthy.
is safe and healthy, knock on wood. My partner and I are holed up here in Sunnyside, Queens. So we are, taking it seriously, staying inside as much as we can. I actually have a friend who is a playwright who is a neighbor, and she has the coronavirus. So I've been sort of venturing out to like drop food and her prescriptions like at her door, that kind of thing. But she just texted me today that she's starting to feel better, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, I've shared on here that I also had an undiagnosed what seemed to be like a mild case, but it's pretty gnarly. And
seems like it, yeah.
When you start to feel better, it feels like everything, really, because it can be really. Again, I was super lucky and did not have like really terrible things, but it was not great. So I think that people, connecting like that, meaning, do you need anything, bringing groceries, taking care of people as best they can, even if they can't physically be close to them, that was very valuable for me. And I'm sure your neighbor really appreciates what you're doing for her.
Oh yeah, of course. It's like, I wouldn't have thought twice about it.
Well, I know that for sure because you and I met only a mere couple of months ago, and I was almost stranded, and without me even asking, you were like, I'm gonna take you to the airport.
Oh my gosh, I completely forgot about that until this very second. We had there was some drama with Steve. Good old Steve, the driver.
Poor Steve. Yes, there was some drama where he wasn't gonna come, or he just wasn't communicating, and I was like, I don't know. And I was like on the back deck being like, okay, what do I do? And I was like, I don't know him. But maybe I could just drive and then he'll tell somebody. And then as I'm trying to like map it out because no Lyft or Uber was picking up, you just like walked out. You're like, I think if he doesn't show up, I'm going to just drive you. And I was like, oh my God, this is my angel. My angel. So we met at an artist retreat.
Yes.
Where I was, yes, tell me.
I was going to say, it was like, because you left and I stayed a little longer. We kind of overlapped for a bit, but it was really not much more than a month ago that I was there, and it feels like a lifetime ago.
Absolutely. Like do you want to talk about the Hermitage for a second?
Sure. Yeah, Hermitage is this magical place on the beach in Florida, and some sort of magical group of people bestows a residency on you if you are so lucky to be recommended, and they give you 6 weeks to use however you want over the course of 2 years. So my last residency was the one last month where I met Courtney. So I had done 3 2-week stays at this retreat, and they give you a literal bungalow on the beach where you're looking out at the water, hearing the sounds of the waves, iguanas running around. It's and you just work. They set you up. If you're a composer, they give you like a keyboard and equipment, and you can go to town. It's pretty great.
Yeah, and for somebody like me who's also in education, it was a very exciting time to just focus on being an artist, and to be around other artists and creatives who are very, very talented. And you and I, like quietly connected, I felt, and I'm so glad that we did. So what kind of work were you doing when you were at the retreat? And just generally, like, how do you identify as an artist?
Yeah, I'm a musical theater writer, I guess is how I would define myself. Most often I'm writing songs, music and lyrics for musicals in collaboration with a playwright who's writing the script, but I've dabbled in the book writing part as well. So I kind of just say musical theater writer.
Yeah, yeah. And so what are you noticing are some of the responses from the musical theater world at this moment?
It's been kind of really varied, I think. A lot of the cabaret venue type places are releasing like archive concerts online and that kind of thing. So there's definitely it definitely lines up with a lot of the push in the theater world to make some of the content available through online and through streaming and that kind of stuff. But there's also been, I think, this impulse to figure out how to rebuild the sense of community that we had, because so much of theater making and musical theater making is about bringing people together. Bringing an audience into a room is literally what the business is, and so I think there have been lots of different impulses that I've seen to try to bring people together. Hosting a British director producer friend of mine put together this online like live stream concert with a bunch of musical theater songwriters from all over the world. I think there are like 4 or 5 countries represented, and we were all playing songs from our living rooms, and he had a guy like mixing and editing it, and so there's been that kind of just how do we keep this idea of the community going even when we can't be physically together. And it's not exactly the same. The streaming thing is its own animal, but I think it's this impulse to figure out how to keep connected to people, like you said in your intro, when we're not really able to do that in person at the moment.
Yeah, and I happen to see on your Facebook page that there was that you had a production that had to get canceled.
Oh yeah. There was.
You might have more, but the one I saw was
Yeah, there's this. I've had a number of things canceled, unfortunately. But there's this one. I have a show called Ordinary Days that kind of is just like done in the world, and I think like 4 or 5 productions were running or about to start that had to get canceled. And one of them was in Madrid in Spain, which was sort of the early, because I think we're a little ahead of us in terms of dealing with the crisis. So it was like that was the first one that I sort of realized, like theater productions are starting to shut down.
So you want to do you want to see what they did? Should I share it?
Oh yes, it's very cool. It's a very cool thing they did.
Okay. Do you want to set it up, and I'm just going to share my screen while you're setting it up.
So the musical is a cast of 4, and there's one sort of close to the climactic moment of the show. All 4 of the characters come together, and all of their storylines kind of intersect. So they have this big kind of group moment together, and the cast, they were in the middle of their run in Madrid, and so they got cut short, and like a lot of people who this happened to didn't get a sense of closure. So they filmed this moment in the show from their individual homes and then edit it all together and put it online. And I was very moved by it.
I'm gonna just hit the volume.
No sufras, todo va a salir muy bien.
Muy bien. ¿Lista? Venga,
Contemplamos esperar, el papel que desciende con un manto de dolor en el cielo. Y dando vueltas se
I'm bad.
We're on a loop. But that was cool, right?
Yeah, it's very cool. You know what I'm hoping I did? I'm hoping that I hit the sound, because who knows if I did.
Oh, I heard it on my end.
You did? Okay, well, that's a good
Yeah.
sign that maybe I was technologically on point. Well, anyway, when I saw that, I was really, really moved by it too. And, you know, as somebody who literally, you know, has met you just recently, and then like, what am I trying to say? I basically, like, I feel like I got to know you from the sort of community gathering that you were, I don't know how to explain what the Hermitage does, but they gather people, we do a thing, and you did this very popular event and had
a little
singers.
concert.
Yeah, like a little cabaret.
Yeah.
And the pieces that you chose felt very intimate. And so anyway, so fast forward to seeing, you know, being in this moment, being isolated, social distancing, and then seeing, you know, the fact that theater was starting to shut down, Broadway was starting to shut down, the New Victory shut down, like all of that, and it was sort of this wave. Anyway, so when I saw that, I just thought, oh, that's really beautiful how musical theater and theater, even when we can't actually be together physically, it still brings us together.
Yeah, and something about it being this production in Spain, and like it was in, you know, obviously it was in Spanish, and something that there was something sort of like, there was a global unity that I felt in that moment, because it was right, I think that was like right when it kind of, things started getting shut down in New York, and there was this kind of feeling of panic and uncertainty, and to me that was a reminder that it's not just us that's going through this, it's the whole world, and it's actually kind of rare that you feel like you're experiencing something as a planet, you know what I mean?
Good point, you're right. Like prior to that, just thinking, like Australia's wildfires, like we're all paying attention or able to pay attention because of social media and other social media platforms to be able to keep up to date about what's going on globally. But I agree with you, actually. I think that from, maybe with the exception of like, even September 11th, that felt uniquely like global and American and New York. Like there were like different pockets, but this does feel like something different. And the fact that we're all in it together and there's so much uncertainty, but that we all have a role to play is interesting to me.
Yeah, for sure.
And humbling in certain ways, I guess.
Oh yeah, I think especially for theater people who, I mean, I always kind of like, I have a questioning soul, I think, and sort of existentially, and so I'm always like wondering about theater and like what it means and what it does in the world, and being in a situation where like you can't do it. What does that mean?
How feel does it that stretch us, right?
Yeah.
And I get that about you and your existentialism.
Only even just a few weeks. You're,
Oh yeah. I was wondering though if we could hear a little something from your canon.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah?
I'm gonna mosey over to the piano, so I'm gonna bring my laptop with me for a little a little scene change.
Let's follow.
Yes.
Adam sets himself up.
I'm not going far, but I'm gonna.
You know what? As you're doing that, I'm just going to talk about sitting at the back deck and watching the stars and talking about all the existentialism. Living in New York City, you don't get to see stars so much. And where we were, we had a clear view because we were right on a beach of the stars, which I don't know about you, but it makes me think very, very much about, all the possibilities and the fact that like the universe is almost unending. And what does that mean?
Oh yeah. I got that from the beach, especially the week after you left, through a series of circumstances, I was the only person in residence at the Hermitage for that last week. And I got that feeling of infinity from the waves, because I would be lying in bed falling asleep and you just hear the waves like nonstop and they keep coming. And that it was that same sense of like, oh wow, this world is just infinite.
Infinite. I just want to note that if everyone can hear, my upstairs neighbors are now vacuuming. It's been fun. It's been real fun living and working and spending all of my time beneath them. Anyway.
That's funny. That's funny.
But that's beautiful what you just shared. I mean, I'm sorry for being so random about that. But what are you gonna play for us?
So I'm gonna play. This is an older song of mine. It's from a show that I wrote called The Boy Detective Fails, which is based on this novel called The Boy Detective Fails. And I've had that show and this song in particular on my mind these past couple of weeks. I think partly because this show, it was originally commissioned by and premiered at the Signature Theater down in DC. This was back in, I think, 2011 or 2012. Just recently in February, this fabulous director in DC named Aaron Posner, who had seen that original production, he is an artist in residence at American University in DC, and he was like, I would love to direct Boy Detective, and if you are interested in coming down and revisiting it and being a part of the production, we'd love to have you. So the last production that I was involved in before everything shut down was this production of Boy Detective, where I went down to this university and worked with the kids and wrote a bunch of new songs for the show. And so there's that it was sort of the last time I was in the theater with a show before this all happened. I came straight to Hermitage from that production, actually. And then I've been thinking about this song in particular. It's called Little Mysteries. And the show is about a guy named Billy Argo, who is 30 years old. And when he was a kid, he was a world famous child detective, kind of like Encyclopedia Brown or like the Hardy Boys. And in the novel that it's based on and in this musical, he is coming back to his hometown as a 30-year-old, kind of overwhelmed by the fact that he used to be able to answer every single mystery that he encountered, and now, speaking of existential crises, is an adult in this world that he like has no answers. And he's like in this kind of tailspin. And one of the things that he's dealing with is the death of his sister, which sort of is like this big, it's this mystery he can't solve. This mystery of life and death and how we move on and keep going through things like that. And in the show, he meets and falls in love with a woman named Penny Maple, who is a pickpocket. And this song is sung by her to hit. There's one little moment where it's kind of a duet, and he sings some lines. I think you'll get it if I sing the whole thing. But he is kind of really feeling down, and really the why it feels so resonant to me in this moment is that he does not deal well with uncertainty. Like that's his kind of biggest fear. He doesn't have the tools to deal with it. And he's in this moment where he's really stuck. And Penny sings this song to him to kind of help him through that moment. So that's what I'm going to sing and play for you as best I can right now. It's called Little Mysteries. Billy Rome wasn't built in a day. Things take time and that's okay. From my grocery list to ancient Greece, everything gets built piece by piece. I often think that having smarts means looking at the world as a sum of its parts. 'Cause life is full of little mysteries, a million questions to be asked. And if we solve the little mysteries, surely the world will be unmasked. I really think you should, with your brain, trying to explain things that you can't explain. Instead of feeling stuck, start with the answers that you've got. I can tell you must have a lot. The sky is blue, now there's a mystery. It's light reflected off the sea. Well, there you go. You solved a mystery. That light reflecting stuff wasn't news to me. Hey, can you tell me why it sometimes rains? It's a big piece of water that a cloud contains. See, it's easy when you start with questions that are small. It brings you that much closer to answering. The smallest answer might just be enough to show you how the pieces fit together. Figure out the ordinary stuff, like where to keep my shoe, where to leave my pen. Yes, I still think Billy ends up shoes, 'cause then these pens, these shoes are someone's mysteries. You lose a pen and wonder how, but I can solve that little mystery. I can tell them where they're missing and it's now. It sounds like such a stupid thing to do. I sort of understand it and thought you would too. It's like I said, solving little mysteries is good. Instead of letting bigger mysteries take hold. Like, where is Emmett now? And does he miss me? And if I asked you, Billy Arno, would you kiss me? See, another mystery, another little mystery solved.
I find you delightful, so delightful.
Well, thank you.
I'm gonna say that the only challenge with the beautiful song that you just sang was that I think we're gonna ask you to do it again in a different clip because
Oh, is it just
we get to hear-
piano?
we can hear the piano very well, and we can hear you
not so
I
well.
know, yeah. So we're gonna make sure that we get this. We didn't test this part.
I think it'll work. I've done stuff like this on my phone, so if I can record it on my phone and send it to
Okay.
you,
Oh, that'd be
if
nice. I
that's
thought, yeah,
if
I can
that's
also find a way,
doable.
but that would be perfect, and then we can deal with that. But the whole point is that it doesn't have to be perfect. Like clearly, we're not being perfect here, but I think that there's something really lovely about that. Like I just love how like how I don't know what the right word is, but how maybe it's
Yeah,
colloquial.
I think
Thank you.
I feel like I write very conversational lyrics.
Yes,
It's like
and I
a thing of
just love
mine.
it because there's a lot to like grab a hold of in your
Yeah.
lyrics, and
Oh, well,
and you
thank
start to
you.
visualize it, and that's kind of fun to me, especially because I haven't seen any of your productions yet. Yet, yet. Yeah, yeah. All right, we need to wrap up. I
Yes.
seriously could like talk to you forever. So I am curious though, like you were saying earlier about how people are responding from going from this venue based programming and in terms of theater and musical theater and finding ways to share that content in a digital way. And I'm just curious in general, I think artists, like the whole point of this series is to, yes, inspire, but also to think about the moment that we're in and how we actually come out of this moment. And I think that because so many people are so focused on the crisis of the moment, and we need them to, so thank you for that. But those of us who are, practicing our social distancing, and more particularly from my perspective, how can artists be activated in this moment now that will help us as we segue or transition from staying at home to getting into a more social engagement society?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I think something that has sort of emerged for me personally is this idea of teaching and education. I mean, speaking of what you do, and this is your world, but I teach a lot at primary stages. They have a school that has a lot of like writing and acting and directing classes, and I've taught lyric writing there for many years, and have a class running now that's moved online, moved to the Zoom, and there's something there's this palpable sense, and the students have talked about it, that like that kind of engagement is really valuable, not only creatively but kind of like on a human level in this moment. And I've realized that is true for myself as well, in terms of wanting, looking for kind of education and knowledge in the midst of this uncertainty, finding ways to like learn more stuff. And I've taken a bunch of like short little online classes, and things like learning new computer programs and all that kind of stuff, which I think, because I haven't, it's been kind of hit and miss in terms of keeping my creative generative practice up, just because I think that the headspace of the moment is so strange, that it hasn't necessarily been easy. It hasn't felt like I've been, at the Hermitage on a writing retreat, even though I'm stuck in one place. And so this idea of imparting knowledge in a way that is not necessarily through writing, I've found very fulfilling. And mostly this sort of realization happened as a student, like as someone taking these online classes and workshops that suddenly a lot of people and institutions have started to offer. And it was sort of only after the fact of me realizing how much I was getting out of that kind of engagement and that kind of connection as a student, that I was like, oh, I bet this is like applies to my teaching as well. This thing that I'm doing, and I've been doing some like master classes for college programs through the Zoom as well. Again, because I think people are just sort of hungry to connect in this way, when the ways that we typically connect, like through live theater, it's just not possible right now.
I muted myself because there was vacuuming above my head. This is the most fun episode. My neighbors are playing a very big role in it.
I love it.
No, I really appreciate what you had to say, and I wish that we could talk more, but I'm gonna get wrapped up. I just want to say that I think what's really exciting is how excited others are about your work, and I agree. Like this time, even though we are in the same spot, because we don't get to go on long walks on the beach or like those but I would love to figure out how to tap in to as much, like what helps us to be creative in this time, because
Yeah.
I think that we have to keep up that practice. So you taking classes and then finding ways how that connects back to your art making and how it reflects back to you working with college students, those kinds of things are actually super, super duper important, and it's inspirational for hopefully whoever's watching this.
Yeah.
So Adam, do you have any last things that you want to say before we go?
Just that I so love talking to you, just like we're on the beach at the Hermitage, and I can't wait to do it in person again sometime
Yeah,
soon.
me too. Someday. I agree, agreed, and I can't wait. But we can have our Zoom chats where we're not recording for a show. And thank you so much for sharing your art and your thoughts and your insights. And thank you all for watching. And remember to keep making art.